Welcome to day 3 of the Creative Compass Challenge. I am Jessica Abel of Autonomous Creative, and I'm so excited to see you all here live today. We already have a couple juicy questions, and today is going to be so fun. I love helping people learn how to say no. It's all about the freedom, right? It's all about the freedom to make decisions for yourself. And so it's very exciting for me. So welcome. Today is day 3 of the Creative Compass Challenge, where you'll learn to put your art and writing at the top of your to-do list where it belongs and not down at the bottom where it can just fall off. So, this is the third of 5 days of doing very simple and straightforward exercises that can unlock your ability to start finishing your amazing creative work without having to feel in control of every other thing in your life first. Because as we all know, that is an impossible bar, and we have to get going on this stuff now, and not try to control everything else first. Okay, so for this challenge each day, I do a little bit of teaching and then I open the floor to questions. I also want to hear from you what your big takeaways were from day 2, which was about creative habits. And how did your habit go? Did you try it today? Have you tried to implement this? And what happened? Did it work? So post any takeaways you might have in the chat while I get started here. Okay. I see a lot of yeses. That is awesome. Loving it. Okay. So who tried their creative habit today and what happened? How did it go? How did it go? Aman is here for the yes, no, yes sandwich. I love it. That's what we're doing today. Okay. Luann says, we had COVID, so no, life happens. Oh my gosh. Sarah Luann, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you are better soon. And take care of yourself. That is the most important thing. When you're sick, the most important thing to do is to take care of yourself. That's your number one goal. Um, Michelle says, too early for my habit still. Okay. Report back later. I want to hear. Um, okay. Pam says, habit trigger is brilliant. Also, the idea that work on and not having to finish everything first. Yes, that is a very core piece of building a habit is getting a time container for it. Okay, Laura said, I planned my work for today last night after dinner. It went well. Excellent. Love to hear it. Um, Lillian, I tried and accomplished it, but not in the time frame that I had planned. So, Lillian, my question for you is, was it that it didn't fit in the amount of time that you thought it would fit in which case, good information. Use that going forward. Maybe you either need more time or you need to plan to do less stuff. Or number 2, was it that the time frame shifted? Did it move in your day? In which case, as long as it's still attached to your habit trigger, it's kind of okay. Your habit trigger moves, it moves with it, right? Can move around. Emily Ann, yes, great morning session. Lindsay, I sort of told my mom I couldn't come over today. Different homework, love it, but we're going to go better than sort of. We're going to get better than sort of with this. Jim, it worked well for me right after lunch. I was on it. Excellent. Good news. Susie, takeaway from day 2, getting ready for your habit helps it happen. Excellent. Yes. The shutdown routine and preparing for your habit helps ease your way into making sure that that habit really happens. Chris said, I did my morning drawing in a notebook. It worked great. Love to hear it. Jim tried it, got work done on the project. Excellent. Michelle, I do like associating it with something I already do. Once I walk my dog this afternoon, I will tell you. Okay, so we'll find out how that goes. Um, Jean, I postponed my video essay projects in order to work on my novel project. Excellent. Good for you. It's going to be hard to stick to stuff like that if you have something specific that's competing. But if you can attach this and make it a doable amount of time and attach it to something you're already doing, I have confidence that you're going to be able to stick with it. Nora said, I noticed I forgot something in my new routine, so it didn't go how I thought, but I did it. And with only 30 minutes, I did more focused work on the project I've said I worked on for some weeks. Excellent. I love it. So, yes, this is just the beginning of developing habit. There are going to be things that come up, and you're like, oh, I forgot that I always do this all other thing, or there's this other piece that I need to fit into my morning routine. And normally I just kind of do it whenever, but I'm going to need to make a slot for it. There's going to be some adjustment that goes on with this. But again, all of that is just information. It's just learning. And the more you are just alert to your surroundings and paying attention to how this works for you, the more um, easily you're going to be able to make those changes because you're looking at it from a scientific point of view, not a self blame point of view. So I encourage you to just pay attention to how that works. Um, okay. Aman says, yes, about yesterday, it was great. I looked for my triggers that recur every day and it worked really well. Excellent. Okay. I love it. Sounds like we're going really well with habits. Let's talk about how to stop overcommitting to everything in your life except for your own work. Let's talk about the idea of overcommitment and its partner, which is undercommitment. Um, I know that everybody who's here is committed to your creative work. You would not be here today doing this if you were not committed to your creative work. I believe that. Um, and I also believe that it's among the most important things to you. I mean, there may be things that compete for that or are above that, family, people you love, other things in your life. That's fine. It doesn't have to be number one, but it's up there. The problem is when we have so many commitments um, running at the same time, that we say that we're fully committed to our family life, we're fully committed to community involvement, we're fully committed to this project, fully committed to this, it's not possible. Just as all those things on your to-do list can't happen, you cannot be fully committed to all of those things. And when you try to commit to too many things, you are then undercommitted to any one of those things just by default, by limitations of humanity. Like you become undercommitted to your work, to your family, to your job, to your community, because you're trying to do all of the things. And so that's where all of that feeling of like, oh, I'm failing everybody comes from, because you can't really show up for um, the family events that you want to be there for your children that come home from school or whatever it is, if you are trying to juggle at the same time managing like, I don't know, a bake sale and also trying to do your creative work and also trying to manage the house and you're on a remote call with your job, like you can't do those things. And so being very, very clear about this stuff is what helps you make those really hard decisions. And I do not pretend that these are easy. Oh my gosh, they are not easy. It is not easy to um have it's not easy to decide between different parts of your life that are all very important to you, how much energy you're going to put into those things. You know, when I ask you to say no to other people, those are people you probably care about. The ones you don't care about, yeah, it's tricky to say no to them too. But it's really, really hard to say no to your mom. It's really hard to say no to your children. It's really hard to say no to your boss. It's really hard to say no to a client. All of those things are very, very difficult. But not until you're willing to do that in the right situations are you able to fully show up and fully commit when you are committed to those things. All right. So that's the balance. When you say no to enough things, you can say a full hearted yes to other things, including relationships and people who need you. You can only show up fully if you're able to say no to a whole bunch of other stuff that wants to take you away. Whatever that full commitment is that you want, you can't do that unless you're willing to say enough no's. Everybody get this? This is like very much the same thing as the to-do list. I'm not going to do this. I am going to do that, but it's people, right? That's what we're talking about today. So the question for you then is to think about what your list of commitments looks like. In the Creative Focus workshop, we go through this in a very organized fashion and you create lists of different things that are in your life that are you have committed to some degree or another, to yourself, to other people. But you need to do this at some level, do a sort of brain dump of all of the things that are kind of hanging on that you've told yourself you're going to do. Um, and acknowledge that saying yes to certain things is going to mean saying no to other things. And so you've got this opportunity to apply the same kind of criteria we talked about on day one. What is truly important to me? How do I want to be spending my time? What what do I want my life to look like in a few years? You know, apply those same kind of criteria to the commitments you're willing to let into your life and say yes to. And when you're saying yes to something, knowing that you have the bandwidth and the energy and the interest to see it through. So that means things like rejecting paid work, if it isn't actually like necessary to keep your rent paid and it doesn't fit your schedule, doesn't fit your capacity. Being willing to say no. Again, I've seen it over and over again, and this is not a promise, but this is a thing I've observed that if people who are willing to say no to some paid work when it's not absolutely necessary to keep them alive, will end up making more money at other things because they're able to put themselves fully into those things. That focus can lead to greater financial abundance because of the better work and the more concentrated work you're putting into that thing. Not a guarantee, but I've seen it happen over and over again. You need to be able to negotiate and renegotiate family responsibilities. I've seen over and over again spouse relationships or partner relationships where the division of labor just isn't questioned. There is no negotiation. It just is what it is. I've seen people who desperately want to give some of it up, but they're not willing to give up the control. And that's just a no starter. You have to be able to actually negotiate those things. I've seen parents doing a lot of work for children who are fully capable of doing that work themselves and being willing to go through the, I can tell you from personal experience, challenging discussions you're going to have with children trying to get them to pick up their part of the burden of household duties. I am not pretending in any way, again, that there are not situations in which family duties and caretaking duties are huge for people. And if they're huge and you have no choice in the matter, forgive yourself and just know that the amount of time you have available to commit to other things is that much smaller. It's not your fault if that's the case. If you're a single parent and you've got a lot of work that you need to do to take care of your kids and you're struggling to just make everything work. I've worked with people who are in that situation too, and it's just really tough. And sometimes you just have to see it through for a few years. And, my heart goes out to you. But be aware that the amount of time you do have, if it's 20 minutes a day that you can do something else, your job is to take control of those few minutes. Because even doing that will shift your relationship with your sense of agency in the world, right? So it's super, super important. Uh, Rejecting underpaid projects from friends and not caving into social pressures. These are all no's that need to happen, right? All of that stuff, you've all heard it before. I'm not telling you anything new. You've heard all this stuff. You may not be doing it, but you've heard it all. Here's the thing that you may not have been paying attention to. The the most difficult no's that you are going to have to say are to yourself. This is day one stuff. Which projects are you going to do? Which ones are you not going to do? That those no's, there's no external sort of criteria for that. You have to go to yourself and consult yourself about it. You have to consult your vision for the future and all those kinds of things. And saying no and sticking with it is incredibly difficult. So if it feels really hard, you're not wrong, basically. Um, all right. So there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with saying no. You might feel like you should be able to do all these things. We talked about that on day one, this idea that we are tasked by societal expectations with trying to fit everything in. And if we can't, there's something wrong with us, all that kind of stuff. And you might also have been societally conditioned to believe that other people's needs are more important than your needs. This commonly happens with people who are socialized as female. Um, Also happens with lots of other people. It's not exclusive to women, but it's certainly a thing that is coded in a female uh, like societal expectation, right? So if you feel that normal, it's just to be expected, but also you need support around that and understanding that it is not your job to take care of everybody else before yourself. Put your own oxygen mask on first, and you will be able to show up for other people better, more fully, and be the kind of you know uh, the kind of parent, the kind of friend, the kind of spouse, whatever that you want to be. That all comes from you being able to be fully committed, which means you have to take care of yourself. Okay, all those things are totally related. Now, I want to talk about the value of the word no, unequivocal no, no hedging, no kind of leaving the door open. When you say no to somebody else, it is a kindness to them. Now, they might want something from you. And Again, there are exceptions to this rule. If talking marriage proposals may not be a kindness, I don't know. But for most things, when you say no to somebody, if you're not able to say yes full-heartedly and be committed to that yes, no is so much better than anything else you could do, anything else you could offer them. If you say, um, if you say nothing at all, they're just hanging. They don't know what to do. They're waiting for you to answer. They don't wanna ask again. They feel weird. When you ask somebody to do something and they don't answer you, you're like, "Ooh, do they hate me? Oh my god, what do I do?" And you don't know, but you don't wanna ask again, but you also don't wanna move on because maybe they will say yes, and you're putting somebody in a terrible position if you don't say no to them when you mean to say no, right? Second worst answer is maybe. So maybe includes not just maybe I'll do it, but it also includes, oh, I can't do that right now. I'm really, really busy. And then I'm busy with this and that and the other project. And the person can come back and say, oh, well, but would you do it after that? And you just leave this door open to this ongoing back and forth. And can you do it? And can't you do it? What you wanted to say was no. But what you actually sort of backed into was, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't, right? The clarity is so important. It lets you off the hook. It lets them off the hook. They can move on with their lives. They can ask somebody else. They can get this done somehow. They might want you to do it. That's fine. And I've actually had clients tell me that they go and say this definitive no, and they have people push back, going like, well, why not? Can't you do it now? And what about later? Blah, 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 blah. And you just have to stick to the no, 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 no. And I find it easier when people push back to say no than I did the first time, because then I'm just like, "Who do you think you are to question me? Question whether I know if I have capacity to do this or not? I don't. Sorry." And back off. It's not your business. That's the kind of the feeling I get at when people push back on my no's. And I encourage you to borrow that feeling and use it for yourself. So let's talk about the yes, no, yes sandwich. So this was in the lesson for today, and this is a fun way of putting together, like remembering basically a memnotic for how to say no kindly to people, because I get requests all the time for stuff that I would love to do in some planet, but I can't do it in my life now. I'm not going to do it in my life now. And so I want to encourage people and be kind, but also be very definitive that I'm not going to do that. So the yes, no, yes sandwich is starting with a little bit of kindness. So something like, dear so and so, wow, what a fantastic idea. I'm really impressed. It sounds like a great project. It's worthwhile, blah, blah, blah. You could say, some details about it, maybe a little feedback, whatever you want to say. But then the filling of the sandwich, the delicious filling, is a clear, definitive, unquestionable no. This is the phrase I suggested to you. Unfortunately, due to my existing commitments, or in order to honor my existing commitments, I will not be able to participate in, join, contribute, help out, or make it to your thing. That's it. That is the entire no. No, because this or that. No, and I'm really busy now, but maybe later. No, nothing. Just that. In order to honor my existing commitments, I will not be able to do this. I'm not going to do this. So the end of the communication, and this could be in person or it could be it's usually email or something like that, is I am so excited to see what you do with this project. Please keep me posted. I wish you the best. Good luck. It's so exciting to see you taking these great steps. Whatever you want to say to the person to genuinely express your enthusiasm for what they're doing that you are not participating in. Okay. All right. So, how to say no to yourself? Here's how you know if you were saying an appropriately challenging no. If you're challenging yourself enough to really commit to a yes. All right. So, if you're going to really commit to a yes, you have to say no in a way that hurts you, that makes you feel like, oh, I really want to do that thing though. If you're saying no to something, you're like, yeah, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Too easy. Too easy. Don't let yourself off the hook. There's going to be stuff you really want to do, and you have to say no to those things. That's what's going to give you the energy for a powerful yes to the stuff that you really do want to do. Okay, so that is the lesson for today. I'm going to jump into questions here. And there are a lot of details about this. There's a lot of questions. I'm seeing there's questions already in the ask a question here. Add more if you like them. I see Lindsay saying in the chat that she wants to stitch this on a sampler. I would like to see that sampler, except I think you should say no to that and do something else, because I think it's probably not going to be the best use of your time, although I'd still like to see it. All right. So Finn asks, for things that would be a no, but I already committed to them, how do I make the decision regarding whether to back out? Extra energy, maybe not worth it, or to see it through this time and then try not to say yes again? I act to myself like it's not a big deal to see some of these commitments through, but I think I'm not acknowledging that it is a big drain on my energy, um, to do things that I know for sure I don't want to be doing. Okay, your last line is the key here. You know for sure you do not want to be doing this. You committed to this in the past because you felt obligated. You felt like this person would have negative feelings if you didn't say yes. And now you feel stuck. You don't want to do it, but you're doing it. Is there any reason you can think of to do it that isn't just this person's going to be a little mad at me? I mean, if there's something concrete that's gonna, like, fall apart, for this person's plans, then maybe there's a reason to see it through just so, because you have committed and you're holding up your end of the bargain. I certainly have done stuff like that where I'm like, "Ooh, I'm really up to here on this, and I need to finish this so that this person doesn't, like, have a big problem, but I'm never doing that again." But if it's just a thing where, like, it would be nice, it'll help people, but it will really hurt you. It's really gonna take a lot from you to take stuff out of to take this big chunk out of your commitment and your schedule. Then you have to say no. So I think that, again, you need to go back to your criteria. What is your criteria for what's important? You have to go back to your own capacity. What are you able to do? And then you have to do some very hard conversations, and these are hard. I mean, I have sort of stood by lots of clients who had to have these conversations with things where people who projects that were already in progress, they were already halfway in there and they had to back out. But the sooner you do it and the more definitively you do it, the better. Because this person is going to be able to go and find another solution for their problem. Sometimes this can really work. Sometimes you may know somebody else for whom this actually would be a really good project. Maybe you're doing some artwork, you're writing something or whatever. And for somebody else, it would make a great sample or whatever, or they're really interested in the subject matter. And so you can give a referral and that helps both people. I've definitely worked with people where, for example, I worked with somebody who did journalism and she was ready to be done doing interviews and whatever. She was doing other stuff as well, but she got access to, like, really, really great gets for her interviews. And so, and there are other people who her job, they wanted to do what she was doing. And so for her to put those things together was a great service to those people. So that's not always the case. Sometimes you don't get that lucky, but if you do, that's a good way to sort of spread the love around. So Chris says, I was going to give up doom scrolling, spending an excessive amount of screen time absorbing the news till I reach my goal. But is that too easy? It's a bad habit anyway. I feel like most of my time wasted is self-imposed. Well, Chris, I do think it's worth giving up doom scrolling because that sounds horrible. That doesn't sound like any fun at all. But that is a habit question. That's a question of, like, you have slots of time or moments when your instinct is to pick up your phone and start doom scrolling. And so you have to break that habit. It's kind of the inverse of the habit building that we talked about. Have something else they're gonna do instead or something like that. I would really recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about breaking bad habits. But that's not the kind of no I'm talking about. I'm talking about a no to something that you really wanna do, you really intend to do, or you hope to do sometime in the future, and you're not gonna do it now until you're done with this project, and then you'll consider whether it's a thing. Or maybe it's a thing you're like, "Oh, I'm never gonna do this." That's a real no. So those are the kind of no's I want you to focus on today. The breaking bad habits, I absolutely encourage you to do that. I can't, convey the tools to you right now to do it, but I do recommend the book Atomic Habits for that. Tasha says, I've tried to never say yes first. I try to say, let me check my calendar, giving the person the idea that no is possible allows me to think about the time commitment and think about it. It's easier to come back that and say that no. Also, I also get back to them within a few hours so they aren't hanging. I think that's great. I think that if the one downside I would see to that approach is the implication that this is all based on calendar. That this is like, if you do have free time, you will do it. But if you don't have free time, you won't do it. And that's why I recommend not telling people why you're saying no and not telling them about like what your other commitments are. Because A, it's not their business. You get to commit your time and space anywhere you want. But B, it opens that door to, okay, but when you're done with that, could you do it? Which just like pushes this down the line. That's a harder no than now. Like to say no now is to say like, I just no, I'm just not going to be involved in this. But to say like, yeah, I might do it later, and then later comes and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. Then it's like it's more emotional than if you said it in the first place. So, it's fine if you really do wanna consider what it is that they're asking, you actually wanna consider it, and you do wanna check your calendar because you might say yes to it, then yeah, that sounds like a great idea because then you could say no if you want to. But if you're like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't care what my calendar says," then I would say that and just say it up front and practice that. Mikhail says, do you have a rubric for giving advice or helping people find someone who can work with them? I often get introduced to people as their only contact in my area of expertise. I feel badly saying no to the work and obligated to give an informal chat or say, let me try to help you find someone available, even though that's also time consuming. Well, I don't know what your field is, Mikhail, but in most fields, there are public forums and things where people can find professionals in that area if they try, if they take some, put some effort into it. I think you could do 2 things. First of all, you could, if this is important to you to make these kind of connections, you could have a roster of people who you recommend and just say like, "Well, I have a few people I usually recommend. Here you go." And just like have a thing you can copy paste and give it to them. Not making introductions, not finding out about their project, just like, "These are other people who are in my field." So that's number 1. Number 2 is you can say, "Well, people in my field tend to go to, like, this Reddit thread, or they post on Instagram with this hashtag," or whatever it is, and, you can look there, and I recommend that you look there, and you could create kind of canned copy, like a thing that you use over and over again. It's like, I recommend you go to Instagram, check this hashtag, find the people who you like, and then comment in public on their posts, and then ask if they're open to work. So this is the kind of thing where if you get this request frequently, you can have you can take a little bit of time to develop a specific answer and then reuse that answer. So one of my clients posted about this at one point where, and this was from coaching, and I recommend that she do this, that basically she create template no emails. So she was really busy and getting a lot of requests. And so she created very specific guidelines and guardrails around her time and when she was able to take projects and what threshold of like an acceptable project was. And she also did things where she's like, I don't answer email on weekends. I don't answer email at night. I don't do whatever. And so she had like auto response emails set up to uh, set people's expectations about when they hear from her. And then she also had canned copy to send to people depending on what they were asking from her. And so, the auto response email is a great one if you wanna stop checking your email all the time, just leave it on all the time so that people, get an email automatically saying, "Hi, got your email. I haven't seen it yet. This is when you can expect to hear from me," and give some parameters. Or you won't expect to hear from me if it's this kind of request or whatever. So, I think those are other things that you can do. I get this question a lot. Like people want an illustrator, they want to meet a cartoonist who can do whatever. I don't have time to help them sort through this question of who would be appropriate for their project and are they available and doing introductions and whatever. I just don't have bandwidth for that. And so I tend to do what I just said, is send people to certain kinds of places to look. Usually they want me to fix it for them, right? They've read my book and they think, I want you to do this, or somebody exactly like you. Can you find that for me? And I can't and I won't. So to know. Matt asks, any questions or any suggestions when you have, say, fallen into a state of being too available, my job, which technically is meant to be all of my time, without making it seem like I'm complaining by trying to set better boundaries? When you say your job is supposed to be all of your time, I assume there are like hours you're paid for or expectations around that. And that would be where I would start, is like 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever it is. Put on an autoresponder. Do not look at your work email during those times, that kind of thing. Um, And I would say have a, uh, you need to have a conversation about this with the people who are asking too much of you. Just to simply start putting guardrails in place without actually talking to anybody about it is going to make them feel like you're complaining. Instead, saying, like, look, I want to be more present for the job. I want to be able to do these things. But what's happening right now is that I'm getting super drained and all this stuff is not working. So I need to, let's work on this together. I know you also struggle with this. So let's figure out what's going to work for everybody. I want to be present when I'm present and, be able to have time off when I'm off. This is you know, it's a negotiation, and this is it's similar to a negotiation with family members. If you are working at home, like when are you not available? If the door's shut, there's a great an acquaintance of mine had this flow chart on her door for her children during the pandemic, which was like, is the door shut? Yes, no, yes. Um, what was it? It was like, is somebody bleeding? Yes, no, yes. Are they likely to need a hospital visit? Yes, no. So yes was like knock. Otherwise, everything was like, leave me alone, right? Like leave the door shut, go handle your business. And so this is a thing where you have to train people and have this conversation. You may have to have it multiple times, but it is worth it. It's worth getting there. Okay, we're running short on time, but I'm gonna try to get through the last couple of questions here. So Michelle says, what are the ways you're navigating saying no to those inspired ideas that like to pop up when you're committing to something? How do you honor them and put them in a place where they don't die? Well, I put them in a place. I put them on a page. I write about them and I put them in an ideas green room, I call it, where I can go back to it at least on a quarterly basis and say, do I want to work on these things now? Often by that time, I'm like, yeah, that was a good idea, but was it a great idea? I've got other ideas and I don't necessarily need to do the thing. And eventually, sometimes I delete them or I just leave them there and I look at them later. So I would put them into, when you have that great idea, do capture it, put it someplace where you can easily find it and add more notes to it, but make it wait its turn and really choose with forethought the way that we talked about on day one. Simone says, this workshop has been a revelation for me so far. Q, I'm so glad. Before I chose what to work on, it felt like everything was equally important. And as a result, it felt like I was always behind. Now it's like everything is falling into its rightful place and priority. Wow, that's really wonderful to hear. I'm so glad. Um, what I'm struggling with is communicating my new focus and priority in a kind way. I'm scared to back out of current commitments and offend someone or possibly burn bridges in the process. All right, so kindness is key. Understanding the other person's point of view is key, but also being very firm in what your boundaries are. Okay. So again, these conversations are not necessarily pleasant. You may have somebody disappointed in you. Um, but if this kind of conversation is going to end your relationship, it might need to end. That's not a friend who is going to be a good person to have in your life, who cannot listen and understand what's going on with you. Maybe there's ways in which you can help like wrap up enough bits of something that you can positively move forward with this person. There's different ways to think about it. But the key to kindness is to spending a little bit of time preparing by thinking through, all right, what am I actually doing for this person? What do they really need from me? What role am I playing for them? And how can I acknowledge that as I back out of this? And that could be, as I said, through referrals. It could be just through apologizing and saying, like, look, I thought I could do it. I can't. Here's my new direction. Here's what's going on with me. And this is why I can't, depending on the relationship. It could be something like, uh, again, like doing small pieces of the project in order to kind of wrap up enough loose ends that they can kind of move on or do something else. So, case by case, it's going to be different. And again, I do not promise this is going to be easy or fun, but it's going to be worth it. And for the most part, I've found that the people you're talking to, I mean, they may be a little disappointed, but they understand and they're basically in favor of you standing up for yourself and doing what's necessary for yourself. Mostly. I'm not going to promise across the board. So Virginia says, would you say the courses or memberships we pay for are commitments with myself? Even if I'm not actively working on them, courses especially? Yes, in the sense that they're occupying space in your brain, that you're thinking, I need to work on those things. If there are deadlines for them, then they absolutely should be commitments in your time. If they are forever access, then maybe they need to go in your green room and you say, like, you know what? I am actively not working on this right now. And that is fine. I'm not going to work on this. Either I don't need it, I may never need it, or maybe I'll need it some other time and I'll do it some other time. I will reconsider this at my next quarterly review, uh, something like that. Right. So, but yes, anything that's going to take your time and attention is a commitment that you need to consider and decide about. Okay, so Lindsay has a multi-part question here. What's a strategy for convincing the people around us who usually ask for time-consuming tasks that the work we're doing is important or valid? I've tried saying, if I finish this, then we can do the thing they want, like making podcasts, but I need to refine that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need to say, this is important to me, and you need to respect that. If you're having somebody who's pushing back, not respecting what you do, not giving you space for this, that is something that needs to be addressed directly. I'm doing this work. This is what my commitment is to myself. I'm doing this, and I need you to respect that space. No questions, no explanation. Your commitment to yourself is a full and complete answer to somebody else who wants your time. Now, if they want to make podcasts with you and you can do it, you can say, like, look, I'm doing this now. I'll come make this podcast with you later, but this is how it's going to work. And sometimes that's a complete flip for a relationship and it just doesn't work that way normally, but it can and it should, right? So you're gonna have to brace yourself, but your commitment to yourself and to your own work deserves equal or greater consideration than your commitment to somebody else's project. Period. And that I want you to take my energy into you and tell them that. Okay. Great questions today, you guys. We're over time because it's such a good topic. That's fine. I'm gonna just wrap up now. So don't forget, homework all 5 days. I'm seeing it roll in. It's very exciting. I want you to report back what external no you said, what internal no you're saying in your homework, and what your yes, no, yes sandwich looks like. I want you to draft it up. The Creative Compass Challenge is super useful for thinking about like how to fit these things into your calendar and how to say no and how to whatever. But the creative process itself and the steps in the creative process is not something we address. And the Creative Engine Masterclass, I hope it's on your calendar, will fill in a whole bunch of gaps that we aren't really addressing here. So the Creative Compass day 4 is tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to try to get a handle on that ever present, unlovable companion, the inner critic, or as we call it in the CFW, the should monster. I'm Jessica Abel of Autonomous Creative. Thank you for being here today, and I will see you here tomorrow.